So, if we look back at February 2026, Block Inc.
Mm-hmm.
basically slashed half of its entire workforce.
Right, which is just massive.
Yeah, that is 5,000 jobs just wiped out. And the CEO, I mean, he didn't sugarcoat it at all. He basically looked at the rest of the corporate world and warned that within the next year, the majority of companies are going to reach the exact same conclusion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a wave of AI automation that already wiped out, what, 100,000 tech jobs in 2025 alone?
Exactly, 100,000.
And the pace is only accelerating. You have Salesforce cutting 4,000 support agents, famously stating they simply, quote, need less heads.
Wow.
Yeah. And at Goldman Sachs, they've deployed Cognition's Devin AI. And we aren't talking about, a glorified spell checker or like an autocomplete for your code.
Right, this isn't just a helpful little widget.
No, not at all. Devin is spinning up environments, debugging, and deploying software completely autonomously. It is literally allowing a single engineer to do the work that used to require a dedicated 5-person team. The ground is just shifting completely.
It really is. And, I mean, the numbers are terrifying if you just look at them on the surface.
Yeah.
But our mission today isn't to just, throw doom and gloom statistics at you and leave you panicking.
Right. Nobody needs more of that.
Exactly. So today we are taking a deep dive into a brilliant new paper by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's titled The Competitive Trap. And honestly, the core insight here completely flipped my perspective on what is actually happening in the boardroom.
It really reframes the whole narrative, doesn't it?
It does. We aren't just looking at ruthless executives replacing humans with machines just to save a quick buck. We're looking at a massive hidden market failure.
Yeah, structural issue.
Yes, exactly. Dr. Westover's research proves that completely rational, forward-looking companies are basically accidentally trapping themselves in this vicious cycle that systematically destroys their own customer base.
Okay, let's unpack this. How do brilliant, highly paid executives end up automating themselves into a corner?
Well, the public discourse treats this current trajectory as if it's just, an inevitable force of nature or simple corporate greed.
Yeah.
But economic theory, specifically the game theoretic models laid out in this paper, it reveals a much deeper mechanical flaw.
Okay, lay it on me. What's the flaw?
It comes down to a concept called a structural externality.
Right.
When a company adopts an AI system to replace a segment of its workforce, it captures 100% of the immediate cost savings.
Sure, the payroll drops.
Exactly. The payroll drops, the quarterly margins look fantastic, and, the stock price usually gets a nice little bump.
Yeah.
But the executives are completely ignoring the second half of the equation.
Which is the displaced workers. Right. Those displaced workers are also consumers. When their income disappears, their purchasing power vanishes, and aggregate demand in the broader economy just drops.
Okay, so it's exactly like standing up at a concert.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, think about it. If you are in the 10th row and you stand up, you get 100% of the benefit of a better view.
Right.
And you only block a tiny fraction of the stadium behind you, so it feels worth it. But because everyone in the stadium has the exact same incentive to get a better view, literally everyone stands.
Yeah, and then nobody can see.
Exactly. Nobody sees any better than when they were sitting, and now everyone's legs just hurt.
Yeah.
And you can't sit back down, or you'd just be staring at the back of someone's shirt.
That analogy perfectly captures the structural trap. In this economic concert, the stadium is slowly sinking while everyone refuses to sit.
Wow, yeah.
The paper actually refers to this as the 1/n math, where n represents the number of competitors in a given market.
Okay, so if I have a 1% market share.
Then you enjoy all the financial upside of firing your staff, but you only bear 1% of the pain when those fired workers stop buying things.
Because they buy from everyone else, too.
Exactly. The other 99% of the damage falls on your competitors. Every single firm is incentivized to act selfishly, basically hoping the rest of the economy will somehow absorb the blow.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a minute here. Because, economists have been talking about technology destroying jobs for literally 200 years.
Oh, sure. The Luddites, the power looms.
Exactly. We saw it in the Industrial Revolution. We saw it when the electronic spreadsheet came out and just wiped out entire floors of accounting clerks.
Right.
But we didn't run out of jobs then. The clerks became financial analysts. The economy grew. So why is this time actually any different?
It is a vital historical point, and honestly, it's the safety valve that economists have relied on since the 1800s. We're talking Ricardo, Keynes, all the heavy hitters.
Right.
The traditional model is based on what's called the reinstatement effect. You automate a routine, manual, or highly narrow task, and you free up human capital to create entirely new, higher value occupations.
So what's breaking that cycle now?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the current wave of agentic AI fundamentally breaks that historical model. Previous technologies were narrow. A robotic welding arm can't suddenly decide to run your payroll.
Right, it just welds.
Exactly. But large language models and autonomous agents are demonstrating high-level competence across an incredibly diverse range of knowledge work simultaneously.
Yeah, the paper mentioned an 80% penetration rate of AI susceptibility across U.S. jobs.
It's staggering.
It's hitting the back office, the creative marketing team, the logistics coordinators, and the software coders, literally all at the exact same time.
And because of that simultaneous disruption, the historical safety valve is just failing. The paper introduces a critical metric here, the income replacement rate.
Income replacement rate. Okay, what does that measure exactly?
It measures what fraction of a displaced worker's original wage they recover when they eventually land a new job.
Got it. So historically, what happens to that rate?
Historically, that rate dips during a transition, sure, but it eventually catches up and surpasses the old wage as the economy creates better jobs. But right now, the income replacement rate is severely lagging.
Because there aren't better jobs waiting for them.
Precisely. Highly paid knowledge workers are being displaced, and the available alternative jobs simply don't pay the same premium. The purchasing power of the middle class is shrinking in real time, and that is what triggers the trap.
I really want to make this tangible because, the theory is fascinating, but seeing it play out on an actual corporate balance sheet is where it gets incredibly real for you, the listener.
Oh, definitely. The case studies in this paper are eye-opening.
Yeah, let's talk about the Healthcare Administration Company, Acme Business Solutions.
Right, Acme.
Between 2024 and 2025, Acme brought in specialized AI models and basically automated 40% of their claims processing tasks.
That's a massive chunk of their workflow.
Huge. And they cut their per-unit labor cost by 35%. I mean, if you were an executive at Acme looking at that first quarter, you were popping champagne.
Oh, you're getting a massive bonus.
Exactly. You've just revolutionized your overhead.
Until the hangover hits 6 months later.
Right. Tell us about the hangover.
Because Acme doesn't operate in a vacuum. The moment Acme proved the AI model worked, their 3 main regional competitors aggressively copied them.
Of course they did.
They rolled out the exact same AI tools with the exact same ruthless workforce reductions. So within a few quarters, you had thousands of back-office healthcare workers in that specific region suddenly without paychecks.
And think about what happens next, right? A newly unemployed claims processor doesn't just sit at home doing nothing.
No, they panic and start cutting costs.
They actively cut their household budget, they cancel their gym membership, they delay buying a new car, and crucially, they delay going to the doctor for elective procedures.
Right, they skip the physicals, they stretch out their prescriptions.
Exactly.
And the ripple effect is devastating. Those displaced workers stop spending money, which noticeably reduced the overall demand for healthcare services in the region.
Which hits Acme right in the wallet.
Exactly. Because Acme's clients are those very healthcare providers. Because fewer patients were coming through the doors, those clinics and hospitals suddenly needed fewer back-office services.
Wow.
Acme's contract renewal rates started dropping. Their revenue base shrank faster than their newly optimized cost structure could handle.
So they basically automated themselves into a hole?
Yes. The automation they implemented actually crushed their own margins, leaving them fundamentally worse off than before they ever deployed the AI.
That is just wild.
Yeah.
And there was another one, FinTech Forward, right? That case study paints a really grim picture of the local fallout.
Yeah, FinTech Forward is a regional financial tech firm.
Right. They replaced their customer relationship management system with AI. And they just gutted their customer service team, dropping from 150 people down to like 45.
That's devastating for a local community.
It really is. And the researchers actually tracked the localized spending of the people who were let go. It showed a 30% drop in local discretionary spending.
30%.
30%. That means 105 families who suddenly stopped ordering Friday night pizza, stopped taking their clothes to the local dry cleaners, and stopped hiring local contractors.
So the local businesses take a hit, they lay off their own staff, and the cycle just accelerates.
Exactly. But here's my question. If the data so clearly shows that firing these workers destroys the local economy and eventually hurts the company's own bottom line, why don't they just stop?
Well, looking at it from the outside, it feels like collective madness, right?
Right.
But from the perspective of an individual CEO, it is a highly rational, almost inescapable mathematical bind. In game theory, this is known as a dominant strategy.
Okay, dominant strategy. Explain that.
Imagine the CEO of FinTech Forward sees this data, realizes the trap, and decides to halt the AI rollout to protect their 150 workers.
Okay, good guy CEO.
Right, but their competitors are not going to stop. The competitors will keep aggressively automating and firing people. So FinTech Forward would still suffer from the macroeconomic drop in customer demand caused by everyone else's layoffs.
Because the whole town is still suffering?
Exactly. But now FinTech Forward is navigating that shrinking market with vastly higher operating costs than their rivals.
Oh, man. They would be entirely uncompetitive.
They'd go bankrupt.
So you are looking at a grim binary. If you don't automate, you lose your competitive edge and die quickly. If you do automate, you contribute to destroying your own customer base and die slowly.
It's a horrible position to be in.
That explains why corporations are scrambling to find loopholes. Ways to look like they are addressing the human cost without actually stopping the AI rollout.
Oh, the corporate band-aids.
Yes. The paper calls them out, and honestly, reading through these corporate band-aids is like watching someone try to put a piece of tape over a check engine light.
That's a very accurate description. Companies are highly aware of the friction this transition is causing, both internally with morale and externally with public relations.
So they do some PR spin.
Yeah, they deploy various strategies to manage the optics and the immediate sting, but virtually none of them address the underlying mathematics of the demand destruction trap.
Let me throw one of the most common corporate talking points at you.
Sure.
The word augmentation. Every CEO right now claims they aren't replacing humans, they are augmenting them.
Yes, augmentation.
The paper highlights the healthcare diagnostics group. They brought in AI to pre-screen complex radiology scans. But they made a big public show of not firing the human radiologists.
Right, they kept the humans.
The AI just flags the abnormalities, and the human doctors handle the complex final reviews. So they process more volume, everyone keeps their job, and a hospital makes more money. I mean, is that the perfect win-win?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, augmentation is merely an intermediate phase. It is damage mitigation, not a cure.
Not a cure. Why not?
Because the competitive pressure for pure substitution always remains lurking in the background. Think about the mechanics of how that AI system is operating inside the hospital.
Okay.
Right now, it needs the radiologist to confirm its findings. But the machine learning models are actively training on every single scan those human experts verify or correct.
Oh, wow. So the human is essentially teaching their digital replacement how to be flawless.
Exactly. Once the AI crosses a statistical threshold where it is demonstrably as reliable as the human radiologist, which, by the way, is the explicit stated goal of the developers building these systems, the economic pressure returns violently.
Because if a rival clinic down the street fully substitutes their humans for the now perfected AI, they can drop the price of an MRI by like 60%.
And the augmenting clinic, the one still paying human salaries, gets priced out of the market overnight. Augmentation just delays the demand destruction. It doesn't prevent it.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
What about procedural justice? Like being really transparent about the layoffs?
Right. Procedural strategies. The Midwest Manufacturing Cooperative is a great example of this from the paper.
Yeah. They gave their workers 18 months notice before bringing in a fleet of robotic welders and AI supply chain managers. They even let the workers vote on the implementation timeline.
Which sounds incredibly progressive on paper.
It does. It prevents lawsuits, it preserves the company's reputation, and it gives people a year and a half to update their resumes.
True. But giving someone 18 months to prepare for a layoff doesn't change the fact that they are eventually losing their primary source of income.
Right. A politely fired worker still stops buying goods.
The demand disruption math is identical. The same illusion applies to generous severance packages.
Oh, I've seen this. Major banks offering displaced analysts 6 months of full pay and 12 months of continued health insurance.
Exactly. And look, this creates a vital temporary safety net for the individual, keeping their purchasing power alive in the short term. But severance is fundamentally an income cliff.
Right. The money runs out.
It runs out. And unless that worker finds a new job paying the exact same wage before the severance ends, which, given the lagging income replacement rate we discussed, is highly unlikely, the aggregate demand destruction is simply postponed.
I was really hoping the profit-sharing model would be the silver bullet here.
It's a popular idea.
The idea is You give the workers equity or shares in the company. So when the AI boots up, efficiency skyrockets, profits go up, and the workers get a dividend check.
It's an elegant idea on paper, but the macroeconomic math simply doesn't clear.
Why not?
Well, when a displaced worker receives a dividend check from their former employer, they don't spend 100% of that money back into the exact same sector.
Oh, of course. They might use it to pay down a mortgage or buy groceries.
Or save for a rainy day. They aren't turning around and buying the specific enterprise software or healthcare administration services that the company sells.
So the local demand for that specific industry still dries up.
Exactly. While it certainly helps the individual workers stay afloat, it never fully offsets the localized demand loss for that specific industry. The systemic incentive to over-automate remains completely intact.
So individual corporate goodwill is mathematically incapable of fixing a market failure. If you try to fix it alone, the market punishes you.
That's the painful truth.
That means we have to look at systemic interventions. If the players can't change the game, you have to change the rules. Let's look at the interventions that actually alter the equation, starting with retraining.
Retraining is actually the one internal corporate strategy that targets the correct variable. It directly addresses the income replacement rate.
Yeah, the paper points to the TechCorp training initiative. They brought in AI and realized they didn't need a massive chunk of their customer service reps.
Right.
But instead of cutting them loose with a severance check, they took 200 of those displaced reps and put them through a rigorous paid upskilling program.
Which is incredible.
They trained them in data analysis, AI oversight, and systems management. And 75% of those workers actually came out the other side with a pay bump.
And systemically, this works because true upskilling ensures the worker remains a high-value consumer in the economy indefinitely. They don't lose their purchasing power, so the aggregate demand doesn't fall.
But there's a catch, right?
There's always a catch. The tragedy, once again, is the structural trap. TechCorp bore the full financial costs of that extensive training program. But their competitors who fired their staff and paid nothing for training get to enjoy the macroeconomic benefits of those 200 TechCorp workers spending their new, higher salaries out in the economy.
Wow. TechCorp is effectively subsidizing their competitors' customer base.
Exactly.
Which is why voluntary efforts are so fragile unless there is aggressive coordination. I mean, if doing the right thing gets you punished, the only way to survive is if everyone agrees to do the right thing together.
This is where the Regional Manufacturing Alliance comes into play.
Right. 15 different mid-sized firms in the Midwest essentially formed a pact to stop undercutting each other.
They pooled their resources to neutralize that 1/n problem. Every firm in the alliance agreed to contribute 1.5% of their total payroll into a shared regional training fund.
That is smart.
Very smart. They also agreed to a standardized, non-negotiable 6-month severance package across the board.
Because all 15 firms were bound by the exact same rules, no single firm could gain an unfair advantage by ruthlessly firing people and hoarding the savings. It leveled the playing field, but at a significantly higher standard of worker protection.
But the problem, as Dr. Westover points out, is human nature. Voluntary consortia are incredibly fragile.
Let me guess. Someone always cheats.
There is always a massive temptation for one rogue firm to break the agreement, automate entirely, drop their prices, and steal the market share.
Which brings us to the necessity of policy. Because when voluntary coordination inevitably breaks down, you need a mechanism that fundamentally alters the cost-benefit analysis of the automation itself. And here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Westover's ultimate solution is an actual tax on automation.
Yes.
Specifically, a Pigouvian automation tax. Now, I want to frame this carefully because I know some of you listening might immediately bristle at the idea. It sounds like punishing innovation or just massive government overreach stifling progress.
No, sure, that's the natural reaction.
So, impartially speaking, can you walk us through the actual economic mechanics of this tax without the political spin?
This raises an important question, and it is crucial to strip away the political baggage and look at it strictly as a market mechanic. A Pigouvian tax, named after the British economist Arthur Pigou, isn't designed to punish success.
Okay, what is it designed for?
It is designed to correct a market failure where the true cost of an action isn't being reflected in its price. The classic example is a factory polluting a river. The factory can sell cheap goods because it doesn't pay for the environmental cleanup. The town downstream absorbs that cost. So a Pigouvian pollution tax simply calculates the cost of the cleanup and adds it to the factory's production cost. It forces the factory to internalize the damage.
I see. So in this scenario, displacing a worker and destroying their purchasing power is the economic equivalent of dumping toxic waste into the river.
Yes.
The company is passing the cost of that lost consumer demand onto the rest of society.
Exactly, the mechanism. The automation tax Dr. Westover proposes would be calibrated to measure that uninternalized demand loss.
So if a company replaces a worker with an AI agent, they have to pay a tax equivalent to the systemic economic drag that firing creates.
Yes, it forces the executive board to factor the lost customer base into their spreadsheet before they hit the automate button.
And the research models show that without this kind of correction, as AI gets better and cheaper, the market failure actually accelerates. The efficiency becomes toxic.
The faster the AI improves, the faster companies sprint to the bottom, hollowing out the consumer base at a terrifying speed.
But where does the tax money go?
Well, it is important to note how this tax revenue is utilized. The paper suggests it cannot simply disappear into a general government slush fund.
Right.
The model requires the revenue to be directly and continuously channeled into regional learning ecosystems, funding the exact type of tech corp upskilling and retrain we just discussed.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
It fundamentally shifts our approach to labor disruption. Right now, we rely on unemployment checks, which is trying to help people after the damage is already done.
Right. Ex post help.
Exactly. The tax corrects the incentives before the job is lost, which is an ex ante correction. It makes keeping and retraining the human mathematically more attractive than replacing them.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Hmm.
Because whether you are a senior software engineer, a middle manager, or a creative director, the overarching takeaway from this deep dive is that the ground rules of your career have permanently changed.
Without a doubt.
The traditional expectation of employment security, the idea that you will get a specific job title, hold on to it, and retire a few decades later is completely dead.
It has to be replaced by a relentless focus on capability security.
Capability security. Say more about that.
You cannot assume your current daily tasks won't be automated by an AI agent in the next 18 months. Your goal must be continuous, portable skill development.
So when you are negotiating a new job or a promotion, you need to demand dedicated, paid learning time from your employers. You need to collect credentials, experiences, and strategic skills that aren't tied to one specific company's proprietary software.
You have to make yourself endlessly adaptable because these technological transitions are not going to slow down.
No, they aren't.
And understanding this macroeconomic reality also gives you leverage. Recognizing that you're not just a disposable unit of labor, but a vital consumer holding up this entire fragile ecosystem, well, that changes how we should approach labor negotiations and corporate policy discussions moving forward.
Yeah, because the companies need your purchasing power just as much as they want to cut your salary.
Absolutely.
They really do. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final kind of mind-bending thought to mull over.
Okay, I'm ready.
We spent this entire time dissecting Dr. Westover's core premise, right? That the crisis is caused by human workers losing their purchasing power, which leads to demand destruction.
Right.
But what happens in 5, 10, or 15 years if the AI agents themselves become the primary consumers?
Oh, wow. That is an entirely uncharted economic frontier.
Right. Think about the trajectory. We already have autonomous agents. If these AI systems start autonomously negotiating their own vendor contracts, buying massive amounts of cloud server space, paying for external API access, and purchasing digital goods and data sets from other autonomous AIs?
A completely closed loop.
Exactly. Could the global economy eventually bypass the need for human consumers entirely? Imagine a closed, high-speed loop of machines endlessly selling to other machines, where human purchasing power simply isn't the limiting factor for corporate growth anymore.
That is terrifying, but fascinating.
Does the competitive trap vanish, or does it mutate into something completely unrecognizable?
That is the million-dollar question.
It's a massive question and something to keep a close eye on as we navigate this transition. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the competitive trap. Keep learning, keep adapting, and as always, keep questioning the systems around you.